I think it, yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Okay,
see it.
it's good.
Oh yeah, it's implied.
Okay, I'll just start, guys. Okay, so it says briefly describe your physical or cognitive domain intervention assignment from lessons 10 to 11. So the one that I did is we did it for childhood obesity, and um, the intervention that we uh, used is from another person essentially, but they talked about how you to have a healthy and happy family, you have to create certain habits. So the intervention really consisted of encouraging regular family meals together, adequate sleep for children, so not letting them have a really all over the place sleep schedule, and make sure that they are getting good sleep. Limiting the time children spend watching TV or just screen time in general, and then removing TVs from rooms where they sleep. And then the big one is that parents need to role model these things. It can't just be, you expect your kids to do it or not. And the end goal is to have healthy habits and happy homes. So it's not just directly targeting obesity. It's more on targeting how to have healthy children. That's the end goal. How was mine?
All right, who wants to go next? Should I just go ahead and go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay. So for ours, we made a blog related to preschool, and just kind of we went over a lot of different things pertaining to high cost in preschool and why people sometimes choose not to or should choose to, and then some of the different alternatives to preschool. And then we talked about some of the basic skills that kids need to have for going into preschool so that if they're not going to actually put them in, what things you should cover. And then we all just posted something about those specific things and just different ideas of how to teach them.
Okay, yours was the cognitive domain, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in your group as well, doing the blog.
It says,
So,
Okay, okay.
so yeah, basically just like um, we just discussed different reasons why people would choose not to go to preschool and different reasons why people would choose preschool. And for my specific part, I went on a little bit into the different philosophies of like teaching preschool. Um, and so it kind of just gave like the reader a chance to like um, see what's out there and really get like good information about what kind of schools they can get their kids into and whatnot.
Can I ask you guys a question on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the intervention was putting children in preschool. So how did you feel like that affected cognitive learning? Or what was your stance on that?
Like, how is it that
Well, like we were
preschool
supposed
affects
to
them?
choose like a risk, right? So the risk was, what was the risk, I guess, that preschool was helping with?
I think part of the risk was just like being prepared for kindergarten and like
Yeah.
actually go to further education because I think that it's sometimes it can be a problem if children are ready for like all day school that they're not uh, they struggle or just maybe that they're not on the same level and so they don't pick up on the things that they're teaching them. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, that totally does. Yeah. I just wasn't quite sure. So thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Kirsten. Is it Kirsten? Kirsten? I don't know.
Okay, so I'm Kristen and the other Kirsten.
Okay,
It was
Kirsten.
kind of confusing.
Kirsten. Okay, so Kirsten and Kirsten.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Is there like a list of questions we're supposed to be going on?
Yeah, there is.
The
She
last
put it in the group
project
chat. But yeah, no, you're just supposed to explain it to us what yours was.
And sorry, what I posted in there,
like what
when I
our
copy
last
and
group
paste
did,
it.
right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
your last intervention, it was for either physical or cognitive. What was the intervention thing? So you're supposed to just briefly describe it, your lesson, or your assignment.
Kristen, are you there?
Could she not hear us anymore?
I don't know, I keep feeling like she's cutting in though. Her thing's there.
Did someone say something?
What?
The feed is like breaking up super bad. So I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I'm gonna keep talking.
Okay.
Okay, so interventions, a lot of them are what you guys said, like good schools, sleep routines, things like that. Some more that I researched and found programs that help make sure that there's like the WIC program for mothers who like breastfeed and things like that, but then they also carry on nutrition for this.
So was yours
Really cool, extremely beneficial, like low income.
Was your project? What did you do for your project? Did you do like a PowerPoint or a pamphlet?
The one from last week.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so I did childhood obesity.
Okay.
That was the one that my group and I. Anyways, so yeah, so like I said, programs and agencies that help with educating parents about there's school and stuff. They teach you about like the food groups and proper balanced diet, things like that. In the WIC program, so those were the interventions for that. Just like other educating like parents on nutrition, because you'd be surprised. I don't even the like healthy meal, just like just feeds her daughters like donuts for breakfast because she doesn't want to make anything for them. Um, so yeah, that's just like an example of how important it is to educate parents for their children.
Okay. Good. Thank you for sharing that. Hey guys, here, I think I'll just read the questions. That works. Just have one person read the questions and then
Okay, that works.
I feel like that might just be easiest. Okay, and now Kirsten, when you have to leave, let us know like a couple minutes before so we can let you answer the other questions as well, all right?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is describe the social emotional domain intervention that you researched this week. State whether you have actually implemented the intervention personally to address the identified problem. Then if so, how effective was the intervention? If not, discuss research or other evidence assessing the effectiveness of intervention. So originally I wanted to do like the risk that children are not listened to, and the only like information I could find was like for deaf children or hearing impaired children. So I was like, okay, this is not gonna work. So I decided that I was gonna do the risk was secure attachment and forming secure attachment. All the kids that I nanny for have access to, I feel like have really great secure attachment. So I didn't have a chance to implement that, and I feel like they're pretty attached to me too. So I didn't feel like there was any risk there. But I found two sources for intervention. The first one is really for intervention for really young children from like 1 to 0. And it talks about how like the reason for intervention is because the secure attachment, like as we've learned in other things, is really the foundation for later development in all aspects. And then that they repeat the same actions as these adults that they're looking to for the secure attachment. And then it gives them it helps them form a mental representation of self and the difference between themselves and other people. But okay, so now the actual intervention came from a program called Project STEEP, and I thought it was just really interesting. This is for specifically the younger group, young mothers and their infants. And it talked about how they wanted to change, what they would teach is, sorry, I have chicken scratch on this paper. Okay, so what they would be teaching these young mothers is how to enhance maternal sensitivity. And that was like the main thing of this study, is they helped them to change their actions and their sensitivity so they could form those better attachments. And so the next one that I thought was really cool, I really liked it, is for families that maybe don't have that yet, but they have older children. And it came from the Head Start and Early Head Start program. And basically, it talks about there's a couple things that they did as Head Start, Early Head Start, that I thought was really cool, and I think other places can implement it also, is that they have a strong social support, so a network of friends and resources that they could go to. And obviously, I'm assuming you guys have studied something about like the Head Start programs, but it's really for communities with low income. And so the other thing was teaching effective parenting. And then, and again, teaching that mothers to be sensitive. So I just thought it was really cool. And then the only other intervention I saw that like wasn't specifically targeted at parents was one that talked about, it's a classroom-based one. So children are receiving these secure attachments via other adults, but then the parents come in and they receive training also. So that's what I got from that. But I don't know, I just want to reiterate, I think, the importance of helping children have that secure attachment. And I think it really comes down to the best intervention is teaching mothers or parents in general to be sensitive to their children's needs. And we read articles, I don't know, I mixed classes, maybe it's from a religion one, but I was just talking, like, I doubt that was from a religion one, but there's a talk, it's called Protecting the Children by Elder Oak, and he talks about how, like, to be a good parent and to protect children, we have to put their needs above ours. And I think that's kind of the key to form secure attachment, is you're looking out for more of them than you are for yourself.
That's awesome. Mine was kind of like yours because I researched kids with like more like irritable and fussy temperaments and like things that you could do for them. And I read a study that was kind of a lot like the one that you described, but basically they just had a group of 50 like low socioeconomic status families, mothers and 6-month-old infants, who were I guess like assessed as being a little bit more irritable, and basically they had like some of the mothers were trained in like soothing and playing with their babies and like forming those attachments kind of, and then there was like another group that like didn't get that training, and the study actually found that the group mothers that were in that participated in the intervention and got that training were more visually attentive to their children, and they were more stimulating to their children, and their children were more sociable and exploratory, and they cried less, and they were also more cognitively sophisticated, um, and it actually says that secure attachment was much more common with these mothers who were trained to soothe their children and play with their babies more often and give them the attention that they need. And so what I really got from doing that research is that it's really important for mothers to be educated on what their children need and just get the information that they need to adequately help their children succeed to the best of their abilities. Because there was a significant difference in the mothers that did get that training and were educated and the ones that weren't, and I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, that's what I researched, kind of on the same page.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do we want to go ahead and let Kirsten answer the 2 questions before she leaves?
Yeah.
Kirsten, do you need the second question as well?
Yeah, I don't know what you guys are finding them at.
It's just on the...
If you open up your chat, you can even repost them to make it make more sense if you want.
Yeah, it's in the group chat, but it's also in the... Okay, so if you're looking at lesson 12, under Ponder Improve, Intervention Convention is where we're finding these questions.
Just a minute.
But if it's easier for you, I can just read them real quick.
How do you the chat?
It should just pull up.
Do you have, on the left side, do you have a little blue word text box that you can click on? Do you have the little toolboxes on the left side?
No, the only thing that's on my screen is the 3 pictures of you guys.
Okay, I'll just read them. It's fine. Okay, so the first one, it's okay, don't worry. It says, describe the social-emotional domain intervention that you researched this week. And then if you put the intervention into practice with a child that you know, then let us know how that went. And then if you didn't, discuss the research or other evidence assessing the effectiveness of the intervention.
Okay, you broke up at the last little bit.
Okay, just start. Just tell us what your.
Explain the.
I'll just start. There's a couple questions within this one. So first, describe the intervention that you researched.
Domain risks that I found were at that age, not sharing, that was a really big one, a very popular one. That I have are being really patient with the child, teachers having play dates, play groups, go over to friends' houses and play and working them there. Found that it's important for the first little bit for the parents to stay until the child's like comfortable with their friend, and then leave. Um, and then as far as sharing, there wasn't really a whole lot on helping kids to learn to share. I think it's a mental thing, having to step in, and share the toy, encourage them to say like, hey, like why don't you go share your toy with your friend or whatever. There's not really a whole lot of other things you can do with that. And then what was the second? Was there a second question you said?
Yeah, well, there's part of this question still is, so what other research or evidence did you find that for your intervention that proved that it was effective?
That was all the research I did for those interventions was just that from like I just pulled all that from like mom blogs and different other pediatric sites, so I didn't really get anything else for that.
Okay. Okay, so then the next question is share highlights with the domain interviews that you conducted. So just tell us some of the information that you gathered from the interviews that we did a couple weeks ago.
Okay. In the same domain, right? In social and emotional?
No, it's in all of them, I think. In the domain interview, yeah, just highlights from your interviews. So things that you found were interesting or
Okay.
things you learned from those interviews.
Okay, just overall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I actually conducted a few interviews just because I had the opportunity to. I work in the primary in that age range, and I talked to some of the other teachers of different things that one of the other teachers pointed out that her class is mostly autistic, and so it was interesting to just talk to her about the differences with like kids without that disability and how they are physically, socially, emotionally, and cognitively. There's a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences. For example, like regarding the physical domain, autistic kids can get a lot more heated and angry over nothing. Um, and cognitively, they aren't able to, well, depending on how severe their autism is, but milder cases, cognitively, they take a lot longer to process what they're thinking. Um, and it takes them a long time to form their thoughts and say what they're trying to say. It also is hard for them to verbally say what they're going to say. But then on the other hand, smart. Not saying that like not autistic kids are not smart, but there are a couple of really sharp autistic kids in the class, and they are extremely smart. And if you ask them a question, they'll give it to you in detail and give you like more than what you asked for. So I thought that was really interesting because some kids that in that age group that don't have autism aren't aren't that smart. Like I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying? Like they're not going to give you like a full-blown synopsis of what you asked. But some autistic kids will and can.
I think it's sometimes also that kids are oriented, they're very observant, right? I think that's one of the traits that autistic kids have that kind of set them apart is they're going to focus and they're going to spend time on these things, whereas maybe other kids will just, their attention span is shorter.
I also interviewed my sister. She has she has 3 daughters. 2 of them are not autistic, and the youngest one is. and they're all within this age range, 2 to 5 age range. And I found it interesting just like watching the three of them over Skype. I found it interesting how they played together. The two ones without autism kind of babied her. The youngest one with autism, they kind of babied her and were much nicer to her than to each other. I don't know if that's anything big, but I noticed, and I know that my sister treats the youngest one, I don't know, like she's a little baby, but she's 2. But I found it interesting how they play, and they're much nicer to her than to each other. And when the youngest one went to bed, the two ones without autism, they would fight and they wouldn't share, and they'd hit each other and do whatever little kids do. So that was just something else that I thought was interesting, how they were totally humane while the youngest autistic one was there, and when the autistic one went to bed, they became animals.
Okay. You want to go, Kirsten? On the next one, social emotional.
Wait, Kirsten or Kristen?
I don't know. You.
Okay, so you want me to just talk about the...
Are you Kirsten or Kirsten? Kirsten.
I'm Kristen. Like Chris.
Okay, Kristen. Okay, I was getting those two confused. Sorry.
I know, I'm like, it's
I have to go now. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Right, well,
thank you.
bye. Okay, so you want to go back to the original question about the what I actually researched?
Yeah, what your interview or your intervention was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that's kind of interesting because I posted on the thing, but I don't think Kirsten did, and I think hers was sharing, and that's what mine was. So I don't know how that happened because I did post, but anyways, so I kind of searched on just how to deal with sharing and how to intervene and help your child when they have problems, because obviously it was saying that before the age of 5, they're kind of egocentric. Is that what it is, right? Where they're kind of, it's all about them, and it's not that they are just so selfish. It's just kind of how they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just kind of did a little bit of searching, like what were some techniques or some things that you could use to help your child. And so I'll just go over some of them that I thought were really interesting. One of them, well, it actually talked about how attachments are actually important for being emotionally healthy. And sorry, I'm just trying to look over my notes. And it talked about, just like, what was that?
I said you're good, don't worry.
Okay. And it was just talking about how just like sometimes we have things that we don't really want people to mess with, that we will tend to put those things away just so they're out of the way. And it was saying that a good way to teach your child that, if they have something that's really important to them that they don't want other people touching, that you can encourage them to put it away and not to get it out until after, their friends have left. So then there's not that problem of sharing, because, I think there are things that even we have that are valuable and we just don't want people touching them. And then it talked about just teaching them in different ways, during the moment, and how you could play games where you could give them like a handful of crackers, and then you could go around and say, okay, now share with this person, or give this person a cracker and this person a cracker, so that you're just actually teaching them to share. And another thing that I really liked that I thought was interesting was they said that you could always even put a timer on, so that way, like if you say, okay, well you get to play with it for 10 minutes, and then when the timer's up, then the next person can play with it. So that way not only does it teach them to share, but it actually teaches them that it's not a permanent thing, like the other child's not going to have it permanently, but that they'll get it back. Because I think sometimes children think that if they're going to give a toy to someone, or they're going to share with someone, they'll just never get it back. And I think that's part of, there's that attachment and fear. And so if you let them know that they will get it back, then they're more likely to share. And I feel like there was one other one that I really liked. Oh, they were saying if you were to have a play group, or if you're having a friend over, that you could talk to the parents of the friend that's coming over and invite them to actually bring toys over, because new toys are always exciting toys, and so if a child brings toys over, the one who actually lives there is more likely to want to play with the toys that the other child has brought. And then because of that, they have to learn that if they want to play with the other child's toys, they need to let the other child play with their toys too. So it's kind of like this notion, if that makes sense. So, sorry, that was kind of really long and just like a lot of different ways of implementing it, but...
Oh, that's good. Awesome. We didn't really hear very much of the other one. I didn't. I don't know if you guys could hear very much of it.
Yeah, I was cutting it around.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how you're supposed to do that, and we couldn't even read her lips because she didn't have a video camera, so...
Yeah, I couldn't hear more than half of what she said, but that's okay. I mean, it is what it is. Okay, share highlights from the domain interviews you conducted with the caregivers in Lesson 10. Okay, so mine was kind of funny because both of the parents that I interviewed are like, how do I put this? They're not typical or like normal mainstream parenting at all. Yeah. Like the mom of the family I nanny does essential oils for her kids. Like they are homeschooled, and I don't know, it's just not typical. So her, yeah, so it's just a little bit different. And then the other one, I like to describe her as this way, like with no negative connotation, but so I'm from Southern California, and she's definitely like Southern California trendy. So whatever is trendy, like that's what that they follow. And that's not necessarily true, but like for a lot of things, like I think like the yogi holistic lifestyle that's like flooding California nowadays is like that has had an influence in her raising her child. So I guess I'll just name the risks that they gave, and then a couple little things I thought was interesting. So nutrition was on both of them, and then so one of them was talking about like nutrition as having a good relationship with food, not just eating to eat, but rather, or because you're feeling sad or I don't know, but to understand like we eat to fuel our body and it's good for us, but we need to have limitations. And then the other one, she talked about not overfeeding or underfeeding or force feeding children. So I thought that was kind of interesting, very different than what we read that the teacher gave for obesity. So, and then for cognitive, they talked a lot about like not being in front of the TV, screen time, so, and how that affects like our cognitive learning. And then the other lady talked about like not feeling heard or too much information. Like we overstimulate in a way children, and we're giving them too much when they really, like, they're kids. They don't need to know exactly how everything works, if that makes sense. Like, we don't lie to them, but we need to, simplify things. So I thought of the gospel, like, we don't give them everything, but we teach them simple truths, and they understand it. It's just at a different level, but they're understanding. So it's just, teaching them to their understanding, I guess. And then the last things for both of them was the secure relationship and trust for the social emotional. And then the other one that this other lady talked about was shaming children's emotions and not letting them be emotional. Huh?
Oh, did you say training?
No, shaming. Like, don't shame.
Oh.
Because, like, a lot of times,
Okay,
little
gotcha.
kids are, they're overly excited or they're really upset, and we're just like, stop, like, I can't right now, like, mm-mm. Like, I catch myself doing that all the time when children are having meltdowns. I'm like, I can't deal with you, like, you need to calm down. And she just talks about how, like, just using things like, oh, I see that you're having some big feelings, not, oh, you're being a brat and freaking out, like, and so. And I think all too often we do that. So that was something I thought was really interesting, and I think parents and people in general, like, because that's how we talk to each other. Like, if an adult was freaking out, we'd be like, okay, you need to take a chill pill. Whereas children are different, and they're learning how to control their emotions, so shaming their emotions doesn't make a lot of sense. So I thought that was really cool. And the thing that I guess I really liked about these interviews that was different from a lot of things that I've read in my, the group discussion boards. A lot of people were like, well, there's modern medicine and therapists and all these outside sources. Like, they talked about parents, but these ladies really focus, like, it's a parent's job. It's not anybody else's job to help your children learn about nutrition, to make sure they're not in front of a TV, to make sure that they're attached to you, right, and to make sure they're heard. Like, you help guide the people in your children's lives. It's not the other way around. They're not helping you raise your children. So I liked that. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of mom I want to be, like, really empowered, like, to help your kids. And I don't know, I thought that was really cool from theirs. And I just felt their examples were things that I maybe wouldn't have thought of, or potential risks. So, yep, that's mine.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I interviewed my roommate and she actually works at an elementary school. She does, like, an after-school teaching kind of thing, like after-school care, but she, like, actually teaches lessons and stuff to the kids. And the one that the risk that really stuck out to me that she talked about a lot, that can kind of go into both physical and cognitive development, is getting a lack of sleep. And I feel like there's, like, so many children nowadays that just don't have that, like, discipline, like, bedtime, and they just stay up as long as they want, and they watch TV till, like, way late at night, and they're not getting the sleep they need. And that's so important for their development at that age, that it's really important for parents to be aware of the effects that lack of sleep can have physically and and cognitively.
I think even emotionally, like,
Yeah,
they're crabby,
right.
they're crabby.
Honestly, yeah. And, like, a child can be physically tired, obviously, if they don't get enough sleep, but also, like, they're going to be mentally tired as well, and they won't be able to, like, retain information and learn as well as they would be able to if they were getting the sleep that they need. And I don't know, I think that that's really, like, today, that's a really big issue, and it's becoming more of an issue as we gain more, like, technology kind of stuff, and, like, kids at younger ages are now getting like cell phones and stuff and like iPhones, and they'll just like sit in their bed and like be on their phones until super late at night, and their parents like don't really do anything about it. So, and I liked what you said about parents. It's like they are the ones that should be responsible for their children's development. Um, Obviously, there's like some things that parents might not be able to do. Like if your child's like depressed or something, you should probably take them to a therapist. But like it's the parents' job to like realize that your child has an issue and try to find the resources to help them succeed. And so, um, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Okay.
Um, Anyways, yeah, like so lack of sleep, that was the big one. But then also like the fact that technology can lead to like a sedentary lifestyle, and that can lead to obesity and like malnutrition and stuff and overeating and all that stuff. So I don't know. I think it's really important nowadays for parents to stress with their children like the importance of exercise and going outside and being in nature and stuff, so that their children will feel tired at night and be able to fall asleep, and they won't like depend on technology to get them through everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Good stuff.
Okay, so are we just kind of going over like all of them, all three categories, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Or just,
whatever
like,
highlights.
Yeah, it's like the highlights of your interviews.
one thing I thought was kind of interesting in the people I interviewed, it was more of just like regular things that kids could experience or risks that they could have. So it wasn't so much like, like autism or like ADD or anything like that. It was like pretty, normal things just with like coordination, speech, and just like vocabulary and things like that. Trying to think. Uh, so I actually interviewed my sister, and she has 3 kids, and one of them is almost 5, and she was sharing how just like increasing your child's vocabulary and also understanding what their vocabulary is. She actually told me 2 stories that I thought were really interesting of just how her little girl's vocabulary, like the understanding of words, were just hard because we obviously know what they are, but sometimes as kids, like they start to pick up on things and understand what they are, but they don't always understand like exactly how to use them, if that makes sense. And so one of the things is her little girl was going to go somewhere with her grandma, and she wanted to wear her church shoes, but my sister had told her that she couldn't wear her church shoes unless she was going to church. And then later, when the grandma came to pick her up, they were actually going to the church for an activity, and so she was trying to put on her church shoes, and my sister told her, "You can't put those on unless you're going to church." And she said, "But I am going to church." And she was like, "Oh, like, yeah, that makes sense, and like, I guess you did get me on that one." But she was saying how it wasn't really, she had to explain to her that going to church when like there was actually like on Sunday where there was classes and things like that, that was actually the going to church, and how just being there for an activity didn't actually classify, like it was actually more of a Sunday thing. And then she shared another thing where sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what it was. She was talking to her about how her little girl was eating, and she got to a point where she was done with lunch, and she said, "I'm full." And she said, "Okay, like, that's fine." So she let her get down. And about 5 minutes later, she her little girl came over and said, "I want a snack." And she said, "But you said you were full." And she's like, "Yeah, but now I want a snack." And she was realizing that her definition of full just meant that she was done, that she was satisfied with eating that particular meal. She didn't really want any more. And so she had to actually sit down and say, no, being full is when your tummy can't eat anymore and you don't want to eat anymore because you aren't hungry for any more food. That doesn't mean you can have a snack. And so it's just kind of interesting because it's like our vocabulary isn't always exactly there. Like they can have the same vocabulary words, but their understanding of it isn't always what the definition actually is. And so just learning how to actually understand what their definition of the word is. So I just thought that was interesting. But
It makes me think, have you ever, I'm pretty sure it's a church video. I'm like almost positive. But it's like a mom teaching, it's like about teaching children, and the mom's like, don't go to the sidewalk, don't go to the sidewalk.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen
I think
that?
that is a church video. Yeah.
I'm like 90% positive, but we all watch the same video, so it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, it's like a mom telling her kid, like, don't go to the sidewalk, don't go to the sidewalk. And then she like freaks out at him because he's at the sidewalk about to cross the street. And he's like, what is, I don't know, whatever the word is. And then she like realizes and feels really bad, like that she had not taught him sufficiently. So I don't know, I thought of that.
that's
Okay.
interesting.
It says, then taking all this shared information into the considering. Spend 10-15 minutes on the following. Okay, attempt to identify common elements of effective intervention targeted to different problems in different domains. I'll just start with that one. I think parenting, like that's like I think the number one thing that
Yeah. I was
like,
going to say, like, it's got to start at the parents because they're the ones that are around their kids. They're the ones that should be, like, noticing the like, risks that their children could be experiencing. And they're the ones that need to, like, figure out what's the best path to take to get their children where they need to be.
I think something that the mom of the family nanny for was saying, like, when we were talking about whose responsibility things are, she was like, well, it falls on the parents, and then when the parents can't do anything, it falls on the community and the people in the community who love and care about that family. Like, it doesn't go to government or somebody who doesn't even know this family. It's somebody who loves and cares about these individuals.
Yeah, it's cool.
I don't know.
I think it's interesting too.
Go ahead.
Oh, often I feel like what happens is, ultimately it is the parents. And, if you are a nanny or if you're, a doctor or like a physician or someone who's meant to help them, ultimately, it's still the parent's responsibility because until the parent talks to the other person or takes their child to someone else, like it's still the it's still the parent's responsibility for the child because the child's never going to be, at someone else's place to get help unless the parent intervenes and actually takes them. So it's really just the parent has to always be involved, always has to, know their child so that they can actually help their child.
Yeah, so that's the effective thing. I think it goes for any of those different areas.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, conclude by sharing your best general insight or suggestion about effective intervention to foster optimum development. Okay, so to spare the whole parent run again, I think it's not just parents, but it's educated parents. If you, and I, we all have our pros and cons of things that we think our parents did well or didn't do well. And again, I was talking to this mom of the family I nanny, and she was like, your parents raised you to the best of their knowledge and ability. So, like, they were just doing the best they knew how to do. And I think a lot of parents, unfortunately, just don't have that knowledge or, you know, principles or standards or whatever. And so I think that's the best way to do the intervention is to have aware and educated parents.
Right. And I think that
Yeah.
before we even like get to the point where we are parents, we should be educating ourselves and figuring out like what we want to be like as parents, you know? And, like figuring out like what our values are and like what we want to like try and focus on when we actually have children so that we can be prepared when that day comes.
Yeah. Okay, so what was the last question?
It says, conclude by sharing your general insight or suggestions about effectively intervening to foster optimum development.
Okay, there we go. I don't know. I feel like this is kind of one of those things where it just reiterates itself, like over and over. Like honestly, you just have to be knowledgeable parents and, you know, and because that's the only way you can truly help your child is just by understanding what they need to know and how to help them, and that's really the best way you can be effective. So.
I think I would just add also the importance of communication and like teaching your children communication. Like if you don't know how to communicate with your children or other people, other resources, I mean, you're at a significant disadvantage, I think. Or if you don't know how to teach your children to communicate their needs, then again, your children and you are at a disadvantage. Okay, the final 2 minutes of the recording, have a group member summarize the highlights from your group's conversation, including lesson learned, conclusions drawn, the summary that will help your instructor to evaluate your discussion. Okay, well, we talked about sharing. And like a lot of the things we talked about were really interconnected. I think obviously the sharing one, but then the fostering. What is it called? Hold on. Okay, focusing on fussy temperament children, and that played almost directly into the secure attachments and how you have to have those loving ties. And I think something that was discussed basically on everything, and but not said vocally. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just like, you know, your love and care for your children. Like if you love and care for your children, you're going to teach them how to share. You're going to be aware of those things that are important to them, and also taking into consideration, you know, the feelings of these other children. And then for temperaments, like each child is different, and you love your child for their individual things, and you want to know how to help them. And I think for secure attachment also, it's an individual thing. Like you can't secure attach all your children in one go. Like you have to work on it individually. And then regarding just all forms of these risks and interventions, that you start in the home, primarily with mothers, I think. And then obviously it goes into family and other things, and then you turn to community. But I think that's what I would summarize it. Does anybody else want to add any little last minute things?
No, yeah, I think you did a great
I
job.
think that's
Okay. Well, great. So then we're good to go. If you'll just send in the recording And then we
Yeah,
each
I'm
do
just.
a little paragraph thing.
Yeah,
A little paragraph thing.
yeah. Do you know? Do I actually get a link on here, or do I actually just like copy the address and send it to her, or is it more of like a link on my Google account?
I think once you
You know?
stop it, okay, from what I understand, once you stop it, it'll like create a, I don't know if it creates a link or it'll create like something that you download. At least that's what the other gal was saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that you can go on like your Google Hangouts like homepage or something, and you could probably find the video on there, and there should be a link on the video. That's how it used to be, but I don't know if it's still like that.
No, okay. So I'm reading it. It says after the session, if you choose to record it, the video is automatically posted to your YouTube channel. So hopefully
Okay,
it'll
we're on
just.
YouTube, guys.
When I just find the link and post it to her, I'll figure it out. I'm sure.
Okay,
Okay.
any questions, let us know or just contact the instructor. She's so nice, so I'm sure she'll.
Gosh, she is really nice.
Okay, and we
Alright,
weren't
well,
trying to get brownie points there. It's just stay in the office. Forgot the recording, so I'm like, oh. Okay, thanks guys, and thanks for having internet.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.